Yellowstone. The Beth and Rip spinoff's Kevin Costner replacement plan makes John Dutton IE's fate worse. Taylor Sheridan's drama series, Yellowstone, was infamously cut short, forcing an unsatisfying end for Kevin Costner's patriarch, John Dutton IE, which appears poised to be dredged up again with the in-development spinoff following Beth and Rip. The massively popular neo-western was reportedly planned to run for 7 seasons, meaning that Kevin Costner's unceremonious exit at the midpoint of season 5 forced an abrupt end to virtually all the show's major and minor narratives. Perhaps most importantly, it led to an unsatisfying off-screen death for his iconic character, leaving a bad taste in the mouths of most of the franchise's fans. The popularity of the original Yellowstone show spawned several spin-offs, with 2 already released and at least 4 more in development. 1883 and 1923 focused on past generations of the Dutton family, while the upcoming 1944 will do the same. The future focus series includes 6666, The Madison, and an untitled Beth and Rip-centric spin-off. All 3 shows will likely have characters or plot lines from the flagship show tied in, but the Beth and Rip spin-off figures to be the closest to a sequel series, especially given their reported plans to replace Kevin Costner's John Dutton II. A mailbag article in Puck from Hollywood insider Matthew Belloni indicates that the Beth and Rip spin-off will begin shooting in summer 2025. As part of the production process, Sheridan and his crew are searching for a Kevin Costner type that is definitely not Costner to join them. While it's obviously far too early for any major plot details to be revealed, it seems fair to think that the show might be borrowing some of the elements from the planned 6th and 7th seasons of Yellowstone for the Beth and Rip spinoff. The plot lines that would have involved John Dutton II in the planned last 2 seasons of Yellowstone will no doubt need to be adjusted significantly for the new circumstances. However, there are likely a collection of moments, scenes, or John Dutton-esque quotes, and one-liners that Sheridan can recycle from those unfinished seasons of Yellowstone in the spinoff. By using a Kevin Costner-type actor, it would be far easier to use already fleshed-out elements as opposed to completely scrapping them and coming up with a brand new direction for the Beth and Rip show. Unfortunately, while that plan may be in the best interest of the Beth and Rip spinoff show, it highlights how catastrophic Costner's exit from Yellowstone truly was. Costner and Sheridan originally planned Yellowstone for 7 seasons, and Sheridan has proven that he's a talented enough writer to build plots and characters over that long a time frame. That likely means that elements from the final 2 seasons were set up years in advance, and fans probably missed out on some truly excellent payoffs for their favorite stories and characters. The fact that Sheridan may be looking to reuse some of that material only speaks to how strong it was. While it's merely speculative at this point with no casting sheet confirmed, it would make sense that Sheridan would look to continue with some of the elements that made Costner's John Dutton IE such a memorable character. There is definitely a path to getting the essence of John Dutton IE into a new character for a new show, but trying to replace Costner really just makes his character's forced death feel like an even bigger waste. The Beth and Rip spinoff will obviously drop much of the original cast of Yellowstone, most of whom were scattered to the winds at the end of season 5. However, Beth and Rip are likely the 2 most important characters when it comes to carrying on John Dutton IE's legacy. Beth loved him unconditionally, even if she hated the ranch itself, while Rip was unflinchingly loyal to both John Dutton IE and the Yellowstone Ranch. They avenged his death by the end of Yellowstone, but there are plenty of skeletons in the collective Dutton closet that they could contend with. Of all the upcoming spin-offs, Beth and Rip feels the most likely to act as a de facto 6th season of Yellowstone, in spirit if not directly in script. It seems like a safe bet that there will also be elements used in the Madison. the Michelle Pfeiffer-led spinoff that follows a new family as they move to Montana following the tragic death of their own patriarch. Between those two shows in 66-66, it feels likely that fans will ultimately still get the best of seasons 6 and 7 of Yellowstone, even if they're served on a slightly different plate. The announcement of the Beth and Rip spinoff set the Yellowstone universe ablaze, leaving fans to speculate about the future of the Dutton family and what it would mean for John Dutton Aya, played by the legendary Kevin Costner. As Beth Dutton's arc grows and Rip Wheeler steps into the foreground, many are left wondering how the power dynamics will shift, and more importantly, how the story of John Dutton will evolve after Costner's departure from the series. The world of Yellowstone has always been intricately tied to the unyielding presence of John Dutton Idea, the stoic and often ruthless patriarch whose love for his land is rivaled only by his intense devotion to his family. He has been the anchor of the show from the very beginning, navigating treacherous waters of business, politics, and family loyalty. But with Costner's decision to leave the series in the rearview mirror, the writers are now tasked with finding a way to carry forward John's legacy, or potentially dismantle it altogether. For the spinoff, it was clear that the focal point would be on Beth and Rip's evolving relationship. Beth, the sharp-toned, fearless daughter of John Dutton, has always been at the core of Yellowstone's emotional tension, and her relationship with Rip, the rugged cowboy with a heart of gold, was destined to take center stage. As the show began to take shape, fans were eager to see how Rip would step up without the looming presence of John Dutton, and how Beth would assert herself in the increasingly unstable world her father had built. But what was less anticipated, and more concerning for John Dutton fans, was how John's fate would be affected by the evolving dynamics of the spinoff and what it would mean for the Dutton legacy. The first problem that arose with the announcement of the Beth and Rip spinoff was the looming question of John Dutton Ia's fate. Without Costner, the show couldn't simply continue as if nothing had changed. In a bold move, the writers chose to shift the focus onto the younger generation, the Duttons who still had everything to prove. While Beth and Rip's story would naturally take the lead, there were whispers of a darker, more tragic future for John Dutton Ia, one that would ultimately cement the character's role as a martyr for his family's land and legacy. A replacement for Costner was always going to be a tall order. No actor could truly replace the gravitas that Costner brought to the role, but the show's producers were faced with a difficult decision. Who could possibly fill the void left by such an iconic character? Enter the idea of shifting John Dutton's fate into a more symbolic, tragic conclusion, while introducing new, younger characters who would potentially carry the weight of his legacy. As the plans began to unfold, one thing became clear. John Dutton's fate was going to take a much darker turn. Rather than casting another actor to take over the role of John Dutton, the writers opted to slowly remove him from the equation altogether. With the focus now on Beth and Rip, John's presence would diminish, but his absence would speak volumes. The man who once held the reins of the ranch, who fought tooth and nail to protect it from every conceivable threat, would slowly become a shadow of his former self. This slow descent into irrelevance wasn't a quick exit, but a painstaking process that would tear at the very core of the Dutton family. John Dutton would still be around, but in a diminished capacity. The old cowboy would grow more isolated as his health deteriorates. His authority would no longer be what it once was, and the ranch would no longer feel like the impenetrable fortress it once was under his rule. The ultimate death of John Dutton, whenever it came, would be inevitable. But it wasn't the violent, heroic death one might expect from a man who had spent his life at the mercy of bullets and betrayal. No, John Dutton would meet his end not in a fiery blaze of glory, but in a quiet, almost unnoticed way. It would be a death marked by years of internal battles, regrets, and the undeniable truth that his children had surpassed him in ways he couldn't have predicted. This slow burn would set the stage for a pivotal moment in the spinoff. Rip, ever the loyal and steadfast figure, would have to take on more responsibility for the ranch, and more importantly, for the Dutton legacy. But what could Rip do when John Dutton, the man who had always been the center of everything, was no longer around to guide him? The answer would be simple. Rip would have to learn to lead on his own, and that would be his true test.